the Machiavellian sadist, right? Like these are the elements of a malignant narcissist that are now, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I just am a researcher who's read thousands of studies, but many psychiatrists and psychologists have identified Trump as a malignant narcissist. So I want you to understand, MAGA is in a shared fantasy with Donald Trump, a shared fantasy that not Trump and billionaires are robbing us, which, hey, basic math, follow the money. Like it's super simple. I can tell you who's robbing us. It's not brown people, but in the shared fantasy of Donald Trump and MAGA, they're a victim, right? First is victimhood, right? And the reason this is a clip I'll play in entirety. It's just a minute. And you say, well, narcissists, are they victims? Absolutely, right? Victimhood is monetizable, right? It's a shared fantasy, right? They're always in fascism, in authoritarianism, in totalitarianism. There is a never ending belief that this group of people that is in fact harming others are in fact victims. And once you can understand that, I'm doing this not just to point out the shared fantasy of what MAGA is doing, but how creators on the left could operate in a similar way for so long, right? By saying, oh, I'm a victim. Everyone's against me. Help me.
Right. Think about some of the things that he's campaigned on. Like if they can come after me, they can come after you. He used the
I'm just standing in the way of them.
Exactly. He used his mugshot in an attempt to get sympathy from black men in particular to say, look, I'm one of you. I got arrested too. And I don't know if maybe we can draw a straight line, but there was a spike in increase in black men who voted for him in the last election. So it's like, Xen, I am your redeemer. If they can come after me, they can come after you. So the power of victimhood, right? It's monetizable.
Yeah, and listen to this 1 minute on the how victimhood is monetizable. I want you to think about how Donald Trump has monetized victimhood, how maybe even creators on the left have monetized victimhood who have turned out not to be the greatest people. Like once we can understand the patterns, because I think when I watched a bunch of these accountability lives where certain creators were being called out for harming women, in particular minority women, the through line is this monetizable victimhood, right? And once you can start recognizing the patterns and identifying them, because what I saw, like a lot of black women in comments correctly saying over and over was, it's not him. He's a symptom of a larger problem. And that's what I want you to understand, that capitalism is economic narcissism that has bred, as we move away from the collective, from the solo entrepreneur, right? From the times of the frontiers where psychopaths essentially would be ostracized and sent to the fringes of society. Like, oh, you can't operate within like the structure of society. You're demonstrating antisocial views. Well, to the territories with you, to Australia with you, right? Like we used to have a place where when you exhibit these antisocial, dangerous behaviors, you would be moved from society. But with the onset of lack of land, lack of resources, and urbanization, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and narcissism became pervasive and stitched into our culture. It became a trait, an evolutionary trait that would in fact help you survive. Like I said, there's about 1%, they believe, presence of psychopathy in society. Well, in C-suite executives in corporate America, they place it at 3.5%, right? These traits help you in capitalism, the ability to lack empathy, to deny the collective, to step on people to succeed. So again, I want to play this clip about victimhood and how narcissists, psychopaths are able to actually profit off of it.
The problem is that victimhood has become a way of obtaining narcissistic supply. Victimhood is an organizing principle, the same as narcissism. Today, if you want to make sense of your life, of your failures, of your mishaps, and this is an alloplastic defense. You blame others. And the minute you blame others, they become automatically abusers or exploiters or bullies or something or predators, and you become a victim. So, but victimhood is not only a way of feeling good about yourself. It's a way of attracting attention. You can monetize victimhood. You can compete with other people. This is known clinically as competitive victimhood. You can send signals, victimhood signals, which are deceptive, a form of deceptive signaling. And what the victimhood signal says is,
do you see what I'm saying? Like, that is the reality. So you want, like, understand that it's not just that, because a lot of times I see people have a hard time identifying predators. I was raised by one, so I recognize a huge part of the pathology when they can't just predate, when they can't aggressively take over, is to fall then back on victimhood. Look at me. It's me against everyone else. Everyone is being mean to me. Help me. I'm the only thing between you and them. They're coming after me because I'm defending you.
Think about the reaction. Yeah, absolutely. Think about the reaction from Trump in particular when there is opposition to what he says. He'll blame the justice system. He'll blame colleges and universities. And instead of addressing the issue, he'll say they're the threat. Because if the threat, in his mind, infiltrates more minds of people that he's been able to manipulate, they will realize that he's the threat, not that they're the threat. So instead, we're going to send the threat to El Salvador. We're going to send the threat to Alcatraz. We're going to send the threat. We're going to deny the threat due process because I'm the victim. They're the ones that have been they're the ones that are out to get me. And then again, if they can come for me, they can come for you. Labor unions being considered a threat. Intellectuals and educated people being considered the threat. Journalists, the threat.
Anyone
the courts.
who tells the truth. And,
Exactly.
and understand, the point of the narcissist is to be in a shared reality with their victims, right? And that shared reality has nothing to do with the truth. So when anyone brings the truth into that, I shouldn't say shared reality. It's called a shared fantasy, right?
Right.
A shared fantasy. So when someone enters that shared fantasy, that magazine, that Trump's a victim, that Trump never lies, that Trump's doing right? Then you see the hostile response of the malignant narcissist. And when malignant narcissists are under stress, because malignant narcissists aren't just normal narcissists, they're not just toddlers. They have psychopathy and Machiavellian sadism at their disposal. So when they're under stress, when they're under threat, right, they become terrifying. And that's what you're seeing, right? The truth is the opposition to Donald Trump. He's in a shared fantasy with MAGA.
Arrest a judge that rules against you. Sue the Supreme Court because they're not abiding by what your wishes are. Blame the judicial system for your 34 felony convictions. Blame women because they're not my type when you get popped for sexually abusing someone civilly. So again, it's the entire victimhood, and that's who he's been his entire life. He was taught that. He was taught by Roy Cohn, eventually Roger Stone, deny. Everybody else is to blame, not you, even though you've done it.
Amen. And now we're getting into like prior to Trump, right? And understand, I'm not just talking about Trump because this shared fantasy with a narcissist can develop on the left, right? And there's an amazing study that was done about causes, right? Like causes like Black Lives Matter or any cause. It can start out pure and after time it is infected by bad actors, right? And just like on the right, there are bad actors and they're more pervasive. And I mean, statistically, this has been studied. Right-wing authoritarianism is a type of group narcissism. It's a pathology that is rampant with psychopathy. Right. So it's more prevalent on the right, but absolutely, as we have seen, there can be bad actors on the left who enter into a shared fantasy with people. So I think my goal is that let's hold individuals accountable, and particularly individuals on the right who engage in this type of behavior. But let's also recognize the pattern, right? And that these people are a symptom, right? George Santos is a symptom. And I want to talk about neoliberal. So just listen to this. Neoliberalism
Before you do that, real quick, it's okay. TKD Rosie, if you would like to insult Felice and I by calling us a Soros-funded activists, you might want to spell activist properly and not activist. Just saying. Thank you. Sorry, Felice. Go
Thank
ahead.
you. Well, no, that's a great example of someone in a shared fantasy with Donald Trump. Thank you for being that ignorant and that much cognitive dissonance and being incapable of exiting the shared fantasy to prove the exact point I'm making. And that's how deep it is, that they can't recognize, they cannot hear the words I'm saying and recognize that we are correctly identifying the cognitive dissonance that they are in. But so just listen to this. Neoliberalism, right? And this is the move in America, like late 70s or early 70s. Jimmy Carter talked about this. The move to privatization, right? What you're seeing Trump do now on a massive scale. Neoliberalism was that it was globalization, privatization, the loss of labor rights, the loss of pensions, the loss of the collective. That when I say neoliberalism, that is what I'm talking about, right? It's adaptable to both democratic or authoritarian governance, right? Nowhere is this more apparent in the United States, where the Republican Party, now a wholly owned subsidiary of corporations and financiers who favor, I'm reading from this study now, who favoring corporate deregulation. Does that sound familiar? And this was, now we're talking about neoliberalism in the 70s. Think how much more extreme it is now. Who favor corporate
we just went through this with the budget. We literally just went through this again. So here we are again. History repeating itself.
That's why this is happening. Is dominated by an alliance of neoliberals, evangelical nationalists, that's Christian nationalists, and right-wing populists. Having become pathologically Machiavellian, the Republican Party is unmoved by conventional understanding of facts. That means, the truth, evidence, or science. And since Trump's 2016 presidency, it is fast becoming the hostage to a pathologized character of its own ideology. A political ideology which aligns with a narcissist becomes itself collectively narcissistic. And all the citations for this that lead to the other studies that back up this is not me waxing poetic. This is a scientific study that has all the proper citations. Again, I shared it in my Discord if anyone wants to get in on this. Neoliberalism, despite its use of economic liberalist ideology, is really about corporate monopoly. That's the bottom line. It has created a corporatist economy where dark personalities, and when I say dark personalities, that's the dark triad. That's the psychopathy, Machiavellian sadism, and narcissism thrive and dominate, and is now seeking to continue by more authoritarian governance. Does that sound familiar to anyone?
It does. And somebody had made this comment, and we did a live last week on stop normalizing fascism, right? So this is an example of we shouldn't be normalizing this type of malignant narcissistic behavior by our leaders. And my concern, because there are so many millions of people that have signed on to this who are unaware that they're part of the narcissistic fantasy as well. We'll get through this because this is incredible. I don't know the way out of it. That's part of the problem that we're in because of the conditioning, the psyop that has been sort of thrown at millions and millions and millions of Americans. But we're seeing it repeating itself. This is not, Felice did the research on this. This is not just Felice sitting in a corner saying, how can I trigger MAGA this morning? This is just, even though that happens anyway, this is just the reality of what it is that we're seeing. We've just got examples in history, and we are seeing it again. Again, don't show me your values, show me your budget. Here we are.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have to just welcome someone to come up here who, oh, sorry. No, God, I'll put my background back up. But what is that guy's name? Navy, whatever. What did he say about me? Something really rude and untrue.
Navy DC 777, do you want to come up and join us? Do you have a request that you'd like to make? Are you enjoying Felice's education?
Yeah, he doesn't like facts. Listen, I get it. As you are faced with the truth and you are being driven out of the shared fantasy of the malignant narcissist who runs your life, it's painful and it hurts. Now, wait, let me just, you think that? I'm telling you, this study is only 29 pages. All the citations are there to other studies that back up this research. Listen to this. Politics.
Navy DC request. Navy DC, please request. Sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, listen, well, Navy, this is for you. I'm going to say it slowly so your brain can get it. Politics, by the very nature of its inherent power, attracts dark personalities. And remember, I'm talking about that dark triad, Machiavellian sadist, psychopathy, and narcissist. Murphy, and that's the name of, now we're citing another study, found that America's capital, we're now talking about Washington, D.C., has more psychopaths than any American state. A fact readily explained by the type of person who may be attracted to such a major hub of power. Burke argues that today, many political leaders of major nations share psychological attributes little different from those of early 20th century fascists, which is not surprising when considering, like two other researchers found, that dark personalities, I told you what that means, are more associated with a right-wing political orientation. But I want to be clear, as we have seen this last week on TikTok, that doesn't mean that malignant narcissism or psychopathy can't also be prevalent on the left. And we need to stay vigilant and hold people accountable. It can. There's just right-wing authoritarianism is a concentration of psychopathy, sadism, and narcissism.
Yeah, I mean, malignant narcissism is not politically idealistic. It is just, it's human characteristics. And then, but what you're saying is it's become a strategy from the right, though. The psyop of the right, which puts their people in defense mode, cognitive dissonance, seeking confirmation bias to support their dissonance. And here we are, being led by arguably the most malignant narcissist we've ever seen in the body politic, like ever. And Navy, we're still waiting for your request. Feel free.
It's so weird. You're still down there.
We can help you hold your hand
things, but not requesting. Yep. It's the strangest thing. Dark triad personalities. Again, I'm just going to keep repeating it. So when I say that, I mean sadism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism.
Let's take a little pause since he did a request.
There you go.
So good morning, Navy. How are you today?
How's it going, guys? I'm Sal Hernandez. Oh, I gave my name. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I have a moment. I'm on a Zoom call, but they dropped off, so I have a moment.
So we're trying to figure out your concern. Are you questioning what we're saying? Do you not believe what we're saying, or do you have a counter to that?
Well, first of all, I am educated. I'm not as educated as you guys. You guys are very, 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 very smart. I would give you that. You're definitely more prepared than I would be, or the average person for that matter. You have studies, you have statistics. You guys are very well prepared. I would argue
like data.
Yeah. You've got data. You've got data to back up everything that you're saying. Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
I would argue that the average person doesn't really live their life based on data, so to speak, that you guys are doing. Most people are just trying to live and survive and get through the day. So it's like
I live to survive.
I'm in construction, so
I live to survive.
Right. I'm in construction, so I'm dealing with the average blue collar person. And when I talk to them and hear their ideas as far as, well, politics is not really a big part of their lives. Most average construction workers and blue collar people, we talk about sports, we talk about our motorcycles, we talk about our cars. Politics is very, very, very not that much. And the ones that do talk about politics, they all tend to be Trump supporters for the most part. We have our outliers that are liberal and don't agree with what Trump's doing, but for the most part, a lot of us are happy with what Trump's doing, and that leads to the thing that, well, it doesn't make sense. Why would an average person, given the data that you guys are throwing out that proves that Trump is not doing a good job, why is it that why do the people that support Trump think this way, and then the people that, like you, are intellectuals and whatnot, they throw all this stuff out, and to them it doesn't really make sense to them?
Can answer. I thought that's what I was explicating during going through this study. You're in a shared fantasy with a malignant narcissist.
Right.
And
when you talk like that.
And I just want you to know, like, I'm not like, you say, like, I'm not saying I have not gotten a 4-year degree, but like my education primarily comes from my just thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? So I was raised by a malignant narcissist, very similar to Trump. And I love to wait. Let me just finish and just receive it. Like, and I love to learn. So I don't want people to like when you say you guys are very educated. It's not that I paid. I got a full scholarship to college for Division I athletics. Like otherwise, I would never have been at college. I would have been in the. I assume you were in the military. Otherwise, I was going into the military.
Yeah, no, I did 20 years in the military.
Yeah, so I'm just saying. Otherwise, that's where I would have been, was the military, to then get an education. But I was in college for 4 years. But my thirst for knowledge, anyone can have that, right? Like my need to understand. But yeah, so I don't want you to think that I'm saying, hey, I sit in a place of privilege. I'm smarter than you. I know more than you. I just want to understand. And every opinion I have or that I'm expressing, it's data driven. So I do statistical analysis. I read studies. I read Trump's budget. Like you're right. Because especially as a woman, right, we know, because scientifically, because of the gender credibility gap, I will be believed less often than a male when I speak. So I have to be 300% right? And then I have to have 7 studies. And then I like to have a recording of a man saying the same words that I would then. I'm like, so I'm just telling you, like, this is not coming because I went to university. It's just, I have a thirst for knowledge, and I want to know the truth. And I get it. You believe, you feel like, is the right way to say it. Okay, let me say it. You feel like, in your own words, I'm going to quote.
You don't know anything.
Okay, let me finish. The reason I'm saying I feel, let me explain that to you, is because there's a difference between how MAGA feels. And I'm quoting you now. You were speaking and you said, people like us, we have facts and we have data and we have all these things, but why doesn't anyone in MAGA feel that way? That's what I'm doing. I'm using scientific studies to talk about the shared fantasy and the cognitive dissonance. And I'm giving not just examples of MAGA now being in cognitive dissonance with someone who may or may not be a malignant narcissist. Now I'm going back through neoliberalism and capitalism and giving other examples of how that happened, right? Group narcissism, shared fantasies, all this stuff was diagnosed at the Nuremberg trials that were related to Hitler and the Schmatzis.
Okay, he's throwing a lot at me. So I'm trying. There's 3 things that you talked about that I'd like to point out.
Sure.
All right, because you're throwing a lot at me. I almost feel overwhelmed, and because I'm a simple person.
Okay, it's all right.
So when I say you're more educated than me, I did not really mean to imply that you've been to college, university, and you have all these degrees and all that. Of course, what you're saying is you're self-educated. I get all that, but that's one thing. The second thing, when people talk like this, it's almost like it comes across as you're talking down to people. And I believe in building relationships. And when you try to build a relationship, if it comes across that you're talking down to people, it's automatically you're going to be building up walls. That's just been my experience. I could be wrong, but that's been my experience.
That's your opinion. That's fair.
Yeah. And that's my opinion. I don't have any data or fact. That's just been my world experience.
That's why I say you feel like.
Yeah, I don't like feelings. I really
well, opinions are feelings.
But you use that though. So maybe so
see, now you're feel like I'm talking down to people.
Well, yeah. Hold on. It comes across as you're talking down to people.
Okay, but Davey, you're the one that implied, why doesn't MAGA feel that way? So that's a feeling. Yeah. So of course, then it's not about talking down. So hold on. So you feel, you guys didn't even let me finish, but it's okay. Go ahead. I will in a second. We're going to address one thing at a time here, because your response was that it was an emotional response because you feel like by Felice and I taking you through the budget and examples of what malignant narcissism is, you feel like we're talking down to you. That's your, we can't change your feelings and how you react to something. Someone just literally just talking about.
No, but more importantly, I validate your feelings. That's what I mean to say. I validate your feelings. They are always valid.
You guys are very good at what you do. So
your feelings are valid. I validate them.
Yeah. You're trying to put me in a box, and you're trying to say that my feelings, my emotions. I'll be honest. I'm pretty apathetic about a lot of this stuff. I don't, and you can ask my wife, I don't care for feelings too much. I state things the way they are. I'm pretty much a straight shooter. I'll tell you, you ask me what I think, I'll tell you what I think. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to agree with it. But when you start putting words and saying that I feel that I have emotions, I'm telling you right now, I'm pretty apathetic about all this kind of stuff.
But you said that though. Those are your words. So I'll give you an example.
I didn't. You guys put those words in my mouth.
No, because you came up here and you said, why does MAGA feel differently? We're just using the words that you said. Hang on one second, please. You just said MAGA you asked that question, why does MAGA feel differently? So what we're addressing is potentially why. Well, okay, let's restart. Let's just restart real quickly. So when have you been listening to live from the beginning?
No, I just the only reason I jumped on is because I had a Zoom call that I was on and it dropped off and now they're back on.
Okay, so can I assume then you voted for Trump?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I definitely voted for Trump.
You voted for Trump. Why?
I voted for Trump because he came across to me as being more authentic than Harris. I can definitely connect with Trump more than I can with Harris. I don't like the fact that we have all these people coming across the border. Nobody was raising concerns about it. Nobody was raising concerns about all these people, millions of people coming across. Damn it. Let me put this guy there.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So anyway, all this concern about people coming across the border, nobody raised a fuss about it. And now that we have all these millions of people, now that we've shut down the border, now it's like we got to come up with a solution on how do we give due process to millions of people.
That's one reason. I got you.
Well, that's one reason.
I got you. So let's take one at a time. Let's take one at a time. So do you understand that when I asked you the question, why did you vote for Trump? You responded with a feeling.
But I never used the word feeling. You're putting
you don't have to. But you don't have to. But your response was you felt like you felt like
I used the word feeling, and I never used the word feeling.
Tell me again why you voted for Donald Trump.
Because millions of people were coming across the border, and nobody was raising a fuss over it.
No, but again, specifically, a connection with Trump, right? There was a connection with Trump?
Yeah, I definitely had a connection with Trump because of the way he talked.
That's a feeling.
Yeah, but I never used the word feeling. And you
don't have to use the word. You don't have to use the word feeling, my friend. You're implying that you connected with him more. Okay. Yeah, so again, so that's the border. So did you also vote for him because he was going to lower your prices?
No, not necessarily. I have a basic understanding of economics, so I'm not going to say that. Okay, Trump said that he was going to lower prices, and him implementing tariffs is going to lower price. No, it's just the economy is definitely complicated. It's not as simple as that.
Right, but see, so this is when we talk about cognitive dissonance, the ability to try to be objective in our thinking about things. What we know is that the majority of people who voted for Donald Trump, and I know Felice will agree, and I agree as well, we have an immigration issue in our country. We can't fearmonger our way through solving an immigration problem. We need to do it through legislative action, just using executive orders and rounding people up and violating people's due process rights. Now, you may not agree. Hold on. You may not agree, but we still have a constitution. And don't forget, the president takes an oath to the constitution to enforce it, to preserve, protect, and defend it. Now, you may not agree with giving people due process, but we still have due process rights under the law.
I think it comes down to the interpretation and how you look at it. Because would you agree that every president follows the Constitution 100%?
That's their responsibility. So
Well,
we're not
that's
going
their
to
responsibility, but what's the reality?
Well, this is an example.
What's the
But
reality?
This is an example.
What is the reality?
This is an example of you moving away from the issue.
Oh, my
so you tell me how a previous president hasn't honored the Constitution.
I'd have to look it up because I'm not prepared for it because I'm doing this meeting here.
Then don't. If you're not prepared for it, then don't bring it up. Okay.
No, why can't I bring it up? It's freedom of speech. I have a right to say what I want.
No, This is a public platform. This is a public platform. Right?
Okay.
It's not this. You signed terms and conditions. You don't have free speech here.
Okay. Just because I haven't seen the gold in China doesn't mean that there isn't any gold in China.
But when you reference something, I'm gonna let Felice jump back in here a second. But you reference something, though.
We're gonna be that nitpicky.
It's not about being nitpicky, sir.
Oh my
it's
gosh!
About the fact that
this is why most people who voted for Trump, they don't think like this. They're just like, okay.
No, because people who voted for Trump are misinformed and ill-informed. You don't have all the data.
Every single one of them. Every single one of them.
The large majority, yes.
Okay.
Large majority.
You can't say all of them.
The large majority, yes.
I'm following you. So
I would argue.
Wait, you're a private account. So I tried to follow you. If you want to follow me back, you can, and we can continue this conversation.
Yeah, because I got to get back on the Zoom meeting.
No, but I want to say this. You talked about the border, right? And your feelings that people were sneaking over the border, right? So there's twofold with that.
They were running across the border. Not even
but
speaking.
let me just speak. These are facts. I'm not talking about my feelings now. I'm talking about facts right now. And due to international treaty and immigration laws, people whose feet touch U.S. soil have the right to claim asylum.
Yeah,
now, how you feel about people's right to claim asylum, that's irrelevant. People have the right to claim asylum. That has to do with international treaty and immigration laws. Donald Trump currently, just like Joe Biden was, or is right now ruling through executive order. If you want to change laws, right, immigration laws, and inactivate international treaties, that's another conversation. Donald Trump has done none of that. Let me just say one more thing about the border, because I can't stand when you believe that Donald Trump shut the border, and it drives me nuts. I'm going to give you facts. These aren't my feelings. These are facts, and you can look them up after and tell me if I have facts or feelings. December 2023, just listen to me. December 2023 was the height of encounters at the southern border, right? The 2-week rolling, or the week-long 7-day rolling average was somewhere between 8,000 something, like upwards almost to 9,000. That was the height of encounters at the southern border, right? 6 months later, or 1 year later, December 2024, Biden's still in office, right? Mm-hmm. Between the 6-month period of June 2024 and December 2024, which is 1 year later from the height of the encounters at the southern border, Joe Biden is still president. We reduced in 6 months through Joe Biden's executive order. Hold on, I'm not done. This is fact. Encounters at the southern border by 75%.
I see where you're going.
So I'm telling you, prior to Donald Trump entering office, what you believe was something happening at the southern border had already been contained. Yeah. Those are facts.
So you don't think that people realizing that Trump was going to become president, you don't think that had an influence on people realizing, you know what? As
a matter of fact, more people were trying to sneak in. Wait, let me answer that, because there's studies on that.
I never used the word feeling.
More people were trying to claim asylum and get into the interior of the country prior to Trump coming in office. So it's actually the opposite of what you are saying, because at that point, you could use the CBP-1 app. And you could, we're talking about legally, not your feelings about claiming asylum. It is legal to claim asylum when your feet are on U.S. soil.
I mean,
at the end of the day, I do want to come back. I definitely have to jump back up on this Zoom call, but I'm going to be back, and I did follow you.
Okay.
I'll be back.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Navy. All right. Bye. It's a great example of what we were just discussing. As a matter of fact, just because someone does not use just because someone does not use the word feelings does not mean that they're not speaking with their feelings. There's a perception of something. Don't you think that? Why is it then that you think that Trump supporters don't agree? It's because they feel like it's different, because they've been told such. They've been told that the border was open. They've been told that that Joe Biden was responsible for inflation. They've been told this and they've been told that. So anytime you're in that particular space, your response is always going to be rooted in your feelings, whether you use the word feelings or not.
What is happening is even bigger, and I want to call it out because that Navy guy, the reason he was so upset is because in his world, he has been taught that feelings are the enemy. And I want to say I was raised in deep, we call right-wing authoritarian patriarchy. That's how I was raised. Both my parents still vote for Trump. And what he is saying is, it's not my feelings. It's not my feelings. It is wrong to have feelings. I don't have them. And what he doesn't understand is everyone has a thought that registers in their brain. And what comes right after that is a feeling attached to that thought. It's not an option. Every human being has feelings. And the difference between how you feel about something and if something is factual is now, are we talking about facts? Are we talking about statistical analysis? Are we talking about data? But what you saw there was somebody who has been taught and steeped in patriarchy. And I was raised in that, like locked in closets, like don't shut up. No one cares about your feelings for days until I stopped feeling, stopped crying, stopped begging. Like I understand how men end up like that because that's how I was raised. Like it took me years of therapy to recognize like, oh, whether I want to acknowledge or not, we're all having feelings. And like when you're up here and you're so determined because just the word feelings you're taking as an attack, that's correct. A larger issue that you have to ask yourself why. Whether you want to or not, we all feel. And MAGA men, let me help you. Anger is an emotion. When you say women are so emotional, they're always crying. When you're angry and you think it like that, that's not a feeling. It's the most base emotion that exists. It is the first most base emotion that is developed in infants. Anger is an emotion. It is a feeling.
And don't forget, society tells men that the only feelings that you can show publicly are anger and lust. And that's part of the problem. And I just want to touch on something that he said. I mean, it's interesting. Again, just because you don't use the words "I feel that way" does not mean that your perception is not rooted in your feelings. It is factual that border crossings were reduced by 75% between June of 2024 and December of 2024. That is factual. If you disagree with that, then in a conversation rooted objectively, you would provide counter for that. Otherwise, it is just your perception or your feelings because you've been told that they haven't. We went through the budget. It wasn't facts or Felice's opinion. It was what the budget said. We have data that tells us that there are being cuts to programs designed to protect women from domestic violence. That's not a feeling. That is factual. How you react to that to say that's not true would be your feelings because you've been told that the Trump administration respects women because they've hired them in certain positions, thus tokenizing them. Exactly.
That's when we say that Trump is trying. One of the main projects of Project 2025, which has been put into action, I think there's a website where you can check, I think over 60%. Remember back when you said we were delusional and Project 2025 was never going to happen.
Didn't happen.
Every executive order issued, except for a couple. And I will say, because people are saying this, Project 2025 does not mention, like dismantling Social Security. That's Trump all on his own trying to steal.
It does. It talks about entitlement programs, but it doesn't get specific. But you're right.
Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not about. I've read Project 2020, but anyways, the larger point is the reason that Trump wants to eliminate, or not Trump, right? I don't even know if, there's books confirming Reince Priebus, these people are quoted as saying, we couldn't get Trump to read a Post-it note. We couldn't if we gave him a paragraph, and it was in giant letters and slipped it in front of him, he would refuse to read it. So I believe that Trump never read Project 2025, but I believe he's on board, like Agenda 47, the videos that he made. Oh, yeah. That was Project 2025. And one of the main things was to eliminate check boxes, eliminate, Hispanic, black. These check boxes. Now, why would that be important that we are all one homogenized group? It's so that we can no longer do what we call impact studies, which are statistical analysis. The way I know my opinions are not opinions, they're data-driven facts, is by statistical analysis, by impact studies. I know that who is being disproportionately harmed by conservative policies. It's math. Mm-hmm. And if you can erase that, and that data, there's a blackout of data, and we can no longer identify who's being disproportionately harmed, right? Imagine that world. That's why they want to erase trans people. They want to erase the LGBTQ, the IA. They want to erase black people. They want to erase multiracial people, because then it makes it harder to identify who is being statistically, mathematically discriminated against.
Exactly. It's not a feeling that the agriculture department budget's been cut by 18% to go after SNAP benefits. That's not a feeling. It's in the budget. Cut $721 million in funding for rural development programs. Cuts to forest management. Eliminate commodity supplement food programs. Eliminate McGovern-Dole food for education programs. Not feelings. This is factual. So when the administration tells their voters that they care about kids, that they care about women, again, don't tell me what your values are. Show me your budget. It's not feelings. This is rooted in fact, which goes back to the narcissist fantasy that Trump and his voters live in.
The shared fantasy. So just to continue along that line of logic, that seems
go ahead, and I'll be right back. You good?
Go ahead. Yeah, sure. That seems to be triggering a lot of MAGA. When I say dark triad personalities, what I'm talking about is, again, a malignant narcissist embodies three things all at once: psychopathy, Machiavellian sadism, and narcissism. And that the narcissist that is prevalent in the malignant narcissist, that is the shared fantasy, right? The shared fantasy of victimization. These other people are hurting us. We've got to get rid of them. I'm the only thing in between you and them. I'm defending you. Help me. I'm a victim, right? That is the shared fantasy of the narcissist. And when the narcissist is under stress, malignant narcissist becomes under stress and is under anxiety, that is when the sadistic traits come out and the psychopathy. But listen to this. So dark triad personalities, which is exactly what I just described, are acquiring political power. Again, I'm reading from a scientific study, are more acquiring political power more often now because they are adept. And this is what I think that Navy guy was describing, but didn't understand what he was saying, right? They are adept at utilizing newer high emotion media forms to promote themselves in what becomes a case of people confusing a narcissist with a charismatically confident political leader, right? He feels like Trump's saying the right things. You're in a shared fantasy with a malignant narcissist. And data, that's why it's so important to discredit professors, science, any source of real information that can discredit the shared fantasy and the cognitive dissonance that this group of people are living inside. And this study is cited, and this, just to be clear, the psychiatrists that are being cited here are the ones who were at the Nuremberg trials, right? I'm talking about the shared the malignant narcissism of Schindler, that now more people have diagnosed Trump with the same affectations, right? That's what we're talking about. Both can be energetic and charming, but narcissists also tend to be self-serving, unethical, and attracted toward a political environment as their manipulative and opportunistic natures motivate them more to interpret events in political terms and disguise their motives by personalities gain the support of 30 to 40% of the population after being elected to power. They dismantle democratic norms. Does that sound familiar? To impose an authoritarian rule that has only the shell of a democracy.
I was just thinking the exercise that we just went through with our previous guest, right? Like in a situation like this, you've got two people looking at the same situation from entirely different perspectives. We provide the data. We say 75 border crossings are down 75% over a 6 month period. And I won't put the words in Navy's mouth, but we have so many conversations. They'll say, well, no, that's just not true. So in a situation like that, the only way to break the tie is to go to the source. So when you go to the source and you say, well, the CPB, Department of Justice, Homeland Security, the data that they report says, in fact, yes, border crossings are down 75%. The response from the PSYOP is that, well, no, we can't trust that source. You expect us to trust the CPB? You expect us to trust the Department of Justice? Because it's been weaponized against us. It's all part of the same plan. It's diminish everything that would contradict the argument. So in Trump's mind, to tell his voters, no, it's at record levels, don't believe anything. You believe me. You trust me. You trust what I tell you. 21 million people a day are crossing the border. Well, no, we've got a reduction of 75% over a 6 month period, trending down. To break the tie, we say one thing, they say something else. That was an example we just had in our last conversation. You say one thing. It's for us. I know Felice will say the same thing. It's not about winning. It's about what the data is. You can't break the tie unless someone says, okay, this is what the information. You say the sky's blue. I say the sky's green. We look at the sky's blue. We're never going to be able to move past these conversations unless there's an understanding that the people have been psyoped. They live in this fantasy because the only person they've been told that they can trust is Trump. That's dangerous.
It's super basic. Like, let me help you. If you're in a democracy, then you can challenge leadership. You can look up facts and say, "Oh, what Donald Trump's saying is not correct." If you do challenge the shared fantasy you're in, the cognitive dissonance, and you're rejected from that community, you're demonized, you're placed in harm's way, then you're in cognitive dissonance. You're in a cult. Listen to this. Narcissistic leaders. Again, I'm reading from a study that was I'm now quoting, we're talking about the rise of fascism and group narcissism around World War II. Our topic today is capitalism, economic narcissism. Narcissistic leaders are characterized by a personality trait that seeks power to validate their pathological need for admiration and recognition, surrounding themselves with sycophants. That's you, Navy, to reassure their grandiosity and to buffer them from any criticism. That's if you are MAGA and I'm saying, these aren't my feelings. Everything I say on the internet every day is data driven. I'm reading studies. I have data upon data to back it up. And then I'll find a clip of a man saying it because I know it's hard to listen to a woman speak, right? And if you still are in the place where you believe I'm lying to you after seeing all of the evidence, after I've put this study in the Discord for everyone to read, right? That is, you're reassuring the grandiosity and to buffer the narcissist from any criticism. However, they fail to govern fairly, having a Machiavellian obsession with power, perpetrating corruption.
This argument reminds me of the conversations that we have that the right only thinks that a Democratic-led government can be tyrannical. So when they talk about their Second Amendment rights to stand up to a tyrannical government, first of all, we know that's not true, again, because of history and because of facts and because of, I've researched it. We certainly know that the 2A is rooted in racism and the slave trade, et cetera. So here we are. The tyrannical government is the one that they voted for. The tyrant sits behind the Resolute desk currently. The tyrant doesn't seem, and just literally admitted, I don't think I have to necessarily honor the Constitution, but that seems to be okay. So the tyranny coming from the right, the tyranny is what they've bought into. And again, it's rooted in narcissism. It's rooted into the PSYOP. They've been conditioned to believe that unless it's Trump that tells them something, everything else, even though it might be the same exact thing, you could trust the Justice Department under Trump, but you couldn't under Biden. You can trust the Department of Homeland Security under Trump, but you can't under Biden, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Constitution is the law of the land. The president is supposed by, again, it's in their oath. They're supposed to preserve and protect and defend it. And because his voters, based on the lie that they've been told, agree with him violating constitutional norms, then they don't care about what the Constitution says, which is, again, if you saw our friend previously try to pivot to say, you don't think other elected officials of the president violate the Constitution? I didn't say that. Just give me an example. Well, I'm just asking you for example. They want to use Joe Biden's student loan debt repayment plan or forgiveness. What did Joe Biden do? He accepted the results from the Supreme Court, attempted another way. That went back to the Supreme Court. They denied it there. He wasn't violating the Constitution. He was trying to find things that were constitutional. Denying someone's due process rights because you don't think there's enough time to try 11 million people is not an excuse. It's tyranny, period.
Once in a position of power, many narcissists descend into a deeper pathology, showing more malignant traits. The capacity of dark personalities to sustain power is in the ability to transfer their pathology to the wider culture. When I say you are in a shared fantasy with a malignant narcissist, I mean it. This is scientific. This is science. This is what has happened to you.
Those aren't your feelings? Those aren't your feelings?
These are not my feelings. This is just science. I'm just sharing with you science. And what you have to dig deep and get out of cognitive dissonance and the shared fantasy is, why do you reject that? And my guess is the real reason is loss of community, right? Loss of community. You've built a community and you might lose that as a result of being wrong. But absolutely, there is no data to support anything Donald Trump says. You can show me, you can, and I invite the conversation. If anyone wants to make a claim that Donald Trump has made and then provide data, I'm open to that. But I just don't think that is the reality of what's going on. And I want to just the social pathology that gives rise to authoritarianism. This is what is now happening in America that was once diagnosed during the Nuremberg trials by the foremost psychiatrists and psychologists that studied schmazis. Gradually develops in conditions of deepening inequality. I say this. I blame the center left. If there's somebody I hate, there's nobody I hate more than the middle, the fence riders. Because if you understand history,
moderates,
that is how Hitler rose to power. Is because the consolidation of wealth and deepening inequality in Europe. People were looking for a savior and they were duped by a malignant narcissist. That is exactly what is happening to us now in America. Right? Disintegrating social norms and corruption of values indicated initially by increasing cultural narcissism. It is the first part of a toxic triangle. The followers are the second part, that's you, MAGA, of the toxic triangle and are characterized by collective narcissism, where the group has become their external locus of control. You are your own control group. You decide fact. Your feelings have now become fact. There is no control group. There's no real test. There's no reality testing if this is true or not. You are the control group. They are susceptible to identifying with dark triad leaders and often exhibit either authoritarian personality or social dominance orientation. These are the two distinct but complementary personality types attracted to and selected for by collectively narcissistic groups. The leader's cult of personality are the third part of the toxic triangle, is a collusion of mutually compatible narcissistic needs. The grandiose narcissism of the leader validating the vulnerable narcissism of the followers.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, this study was written years ago. And so, MAGA, if you think you're part of something groundbreaking, you're not. I used to think what was wrong with me because I was raised by a malignant narcissist like Trump. I used to think whatever's wrong with me Nobody's like this. And after years and years of therapy, I realized, oh no, I am a carbon copy of many other people. You are not special. There are studies just mapping out exactly who you are.
Just real quick, just a programming note, friends. We had some issues with our YouTube, but I do know that Felice is streaming on YouTube and on Twitch, I believe. And ultimately, I'll work with Felice and her mods to get this show posted up on our YouTube, so we have a record of it, because this is some great shit that we need to be talking about today.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to clip it. I have clipping software, so yeah, that's why we're in big boxes. But yeah, on A Girl Has No Name, my YouTube, it will post if you want to see it again. And I think I'll clip it, and in fact, if you want access to those clips.
Yes, please. And also, just again, another programming note. So Felice and Matt and I, as you guys know, we do our virtual town hall, and she and I will be discussing, because our friend Matt is traveling, doing some democratic defense work. So we believe we're going to go tomorrow night. It might just be the two of us, but we'll work on that. We'll give you guys an update tomorrow as to whether or not we'll do our virtual town hall tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Last week I had mentioned that we're going to be doing this, it's all white people until it's no white people. I've reached out to the creators that I wanted to work with, and just because of some of the things we've talked about today, just because there's a lot going on, we might push that out a week, only because we'd like the dust to settle a little bit, because we're still going to have this live. It's very likely going to be next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. I will make that official probably tomorrow and let you guys know definitively. But then on Friday, definitely on Friday morning, we're going to be doing our small business special program that will be on Friday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Sorry, can't do Facts After Dark Friday night. My daughter has a concert that I'll be attending. But again, tomorrow night, you will hear an update from myself and Felice as to whether or not we're going to do our live. I think we probably will. Our town hall might just be the two of us, but we'll get back to you. And then we're going to move our It's All White People Until It's No White People live from this Wednesday to next Wednesday. And then our small business themed live will be Friday morning. Because if you have a small business and if you want to promote it, as a small business owner myself, I get it. The lifeblood of American is we're talking about entrepreneurial capitalism, how we've lost that into the shift towards what we're talking about today, corporate capitalism, and how it's become this economic narcissism. So it's an important conversation. We'll be doing that on Friday. Sorry, just want to make sure I got that done. Back to you, Felice.
Yeah, and later I'll be doing the People's Receipts today. Later, 11:30 Pacific, 2:30 Eastern. Join us. I do it Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. And I wanted to read this. Terry, thank you for the donation on Venmo. She said, "Guess who's taking over Doge? Matt Gaetz will take over as the new leader of Doge." I have been on this live, and if that's true,
I'm sorry. What?
I'm sorry. That's just what someone paid to tell me to read out loud, as if our lives couldn't get any worse. Well, that's a great example. But that goes, and now I'm going to start quoting a Nuremberg psychologist. These are people who are at the Nuremberg trials diagnosing the schmazzies, the leadership, and the people that supported them, right? Schmazziism's appeal was not to do with race or nationality, but rather certain types of mind, and understood with consideration to specific personality types. Both schmazzis being considered as domineering, Machiavellian, that's sadistic, inconsiderate, vain, and self-serving, whereas the cultured schmazzis, those are the people that followed them, right? The vulnerable narcissists are characterized more by insecurity, uncertainty, frustrated ambitions, and perhaps a subordinate attitude. So understand, if you feel powerful following a malignant narcissist, a psychopath, a sadist, you're not. You're a vulnerable, insecure person who is lost, who was probably raised by one as a child, and authoritarian, malignant narcissism seems familiar to you. You have two choices when you're like myself, raised by someone like Trump. You can fight, or you can fawn. You can give in and say, I recognize this. I was raised by one of these. I'd like to follow another one.
Easily manipulated.
I'm sorry, CJ. I welcome CJ. Here's your chance, CJ. I'm going to help you because I've seen you spamming the comments. If you feel that way, if you don't understand the difference between free thought and what is going on in the shared fantasy of MAGA, you continue making false statements. You are welcome to come up here and communicate with us publicly. Otherwise, stop typing the same thing over and over. I would love to have the conversation with you and explain to you the difference.
Please request up.
Any day now, CJ. You've only written your fingers. You probably have arthritis at this point from typing the same exact thing over and over. I want to read again. We're talking now about the Nuremberg trials where schmazzies were held accountable and their followers. A Nuremberg psychologist argued sociopathic personalities dominated the schmazzi leadership, noting that Germans had been raised in a culture which prioritized deference to authority. Does that sound familiar? There are many studies about how Americans have been raised in authoritarian households. And that's why giving deference to an authoritarian male seems very familiar. Don't cry, I'll give you something to cry about. This isn't up for discussion, right? Does any of this sound familiar? We have been bred to follow an authoritarian leader. Just saying. To follow